What was the scariest individual trick that you did?
The one that comes to mind is like I hit this rail in Finland, and it was like for child support era. So it was pretty early on in my career, but it was in Finland up on this like double-decker bridge, and there was like a 15-foot run-in. So the only way to get speed was to go back and go over the bridge, board rock, and then come back down. And it was a massive highway of just cars and probably 40 feet. So if for some reason they pulled me up a little bit too far and I slip back, like I'm falling like you look back on that, you're like, that's not even worth it. Like, don't hit that spot. It's not meant for it.
Sure.
But I was just, so young and fired up that I'm like, no, I think that'll work. Like do this. And it ended up working out. But like stuff like that is so dangerous and so scary that like for sure I would not do that again.
Welcome back, friends. Today I drove to Minneapolis and spilled water all over my lap 10 minutes before I got here to sit with a pro snowboarder who's graced the show before, but his face wasn't in it.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the show, Joe Sexton.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here, have you come here.
I was going to say, this is your place. I'm glad that you aren't homeless and you have a place.
Yes.
This is cool, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you like living, I guess, is this uptown or what area is this?
This is uptown, uptown Minneapolis. Yeah, I love it here, actually.
And you stay here pretty much full time? I mean, you do travel a lot, but it's got to be a lot less travel than it used to be.
It's actually just about the same with the board, like traveling now for trade shows and things like that. I feel like I'm on the road in the winter, like a lot, but then like this time of year, it slows down quite a bit, and then I'll spend more time here. Yeah.
And you just golf all summer long?
All summer long. Yeah.
Have you been mostly leaving the skateboard to the side? I haven't been seeing a whole lot of clips.
Yeah, tragically, I have. I don't know where it really came from. I'm going to get back into it, but I swear like golf is just so like time demanding.
Yeah.
And you can't roll your ankle golfing. You can't really like get a shinner golfing. So it's just like this stuff where I'm like, it's competitive. It's fun to try to get better. Like how skating felt without like the physical side. But I'm not like hanging it up. It's just like a little bit of a hiatus right now.
Is it also just because you're so busy with public where like when you're a pro snowboarder, there's only so much you can physically be doing snowboarding, right? So you do have free time, but when you run a business, you can never have everything done to 100%. So for me, if I go skating or do anything that's like purely just because I want to, I always have like this little twinge of guilt of like, but I could get this done or I could get that done.
Yeah, a little bit. Or I feel like golf is like, I'm just trying to carve out the time to like allow it. And then when I can go, it's just like good mentally. Like I walk every time I go. So it's like I'm getting exercise. No, like I walk. It's like really good for like my mental to like go and just kind of think about golf, but you can think about business stuff too while I'm doing it. And I don't know, I think maybe just like I had friends that were skating that don't really skate as much anymore. And I'm trying to like see where people are getting in. But it's like every time I'm about to go, I just like cruise around. And then when you don't do it for a while, you go and you're like, oh, I suck. Yeah. And it's so much harder to like build that up again. So yeah, like I said, I think it's just an odd shift, but I'm not putting too much like pressure on it to get away from it.
I think for me it was such a part of my identity for such a long time. I felt guilty not doing it. But as I've gotten older, now that I'm 35, like my body doesn't work the way that it used to, and most of my friends don't skate anymore, even the ones who are super core about it growing up. Now we all just kind of do different things, and now it's like if I have the day open, I'm like, I kind of want to just go out in nature and like do something like that, go hiking or whatever. So did you actually get any clips this year?
Snowboarding? Yeah. I did, yeah.
Hell yeah. When can we expect it? Because last year you didn't really put out anything, right?
It's been like a really weird, like that's been feeling very weird to me too. I went, 15 years in a row of like my only focus was like going out and filming clips. And if I had a season like with no clips, it would be like, I wouldn't even know what to do with myself. And like, so now I filmed for the 32 video, which we're having, but the only trip I was able to get on was like a trip to Avoriaz, France at the end of the year. We got there and the snow wasn't great. Like we kind of pieced some stuff together and it was fun to get back out there, but it's been really difficult to balance even like the brain state of like working on the brand or like going to trade shows and talking about stuff to then strapping in on a handrail and like looking at like trying a trick.
Sure.
Like it's just like they're becoming harder and harder to like switch between. I feel like I'm not like by any means done. And I think even next year, it's like when the opportunity's there, I want to just take it. But it's been like, we're going on this trip. Well, I can't, I got a trade show. And the winters are shorter and shorter. Yeah. So yeah, it's, I know it sounds like an excuse, but it's kind of like just the way it's sort of shook out, you know? And I think I have a maybe more of an upside with like focusing on the brand or things like that, like longer term, than like going out and trying to get a trick. But I still, like, when I am filming, I still have that bug, and I'm like, I want to do it the right way.
Do you still feel the same amount of pressure to, like, get stuff done? Or do you think because people now see the role that you have, you're like, well, expectations aren't there as much, I shouldn't push myself as much to, like, hit this thing just because?
I think so. I think I maybe have, in my mind, maybe a little, like, less to prove. I think I've had, like, 15 video parts.
Right.
The kids now are 18 years old and, like, so good. And there's also that little side of me that's like, I don't want to just put out like garbage or like something that's like a B grade clip and then be like, I'm still doing it. Like I really, really want to kind of, if I'm going to do it, go out and find the right spot and truly do it. But, you know, with sponsors that have conversations where it's pretty valuable to be sitting there in an L1 jacket talking to a shop owner about Public, but wearing L1 and they carry L1. Like that's all part of like the job as a, you know, a pro snowboarder as well as like is getting shops hyped on the product. So they're like, if you're going to Zoomies 100K and you're riding the boots and bindings and all this, like that's valuable too.
That's why Tony Hawk's still pro, dude. Besides the fact he owns the company, but he's still a pro. He's still involved with people, and that's honestly, we talked about this before, but like pro skateboarders, snowboarders, whatever, pro any sports, all you are is an advertisement, really. Like when it comes down to the business side of it, is like there should be relationships there, and you should think it's cool and all of that. But it comes down to like this is a great advertisement. Otherwise, it's hard to justify paying somebody. And if the advertisement doesn't have to come from the tricks themselves, it can come from totally different things. From skateboarders, it could come from pros going to Woodward and like being around the kids and stuff. Like it doesn't have to be the same pressure that it once had.
No, and we've seen the landscape change so much. Like it used to be there was such an emphasis on just video parts because that was the only medium. Well, now there's influencers, there's board reviews, there's all different stuff. So like I've kind of carved out this little niche of like gonna film tricks, but I'm also super involved in the design side with these brands and, you know, helping them with on the, you know, like just a bigger kind of picture. And it's like, I'm also grateful that I have that opportunity because a lot of careers don't go till 38, you know? And so I'm grateful that my sponsors have stuck by me and kind of helped me take this next step and supported me through it, which is pretty incredible.
Have you had them try to give you guidance on like, hey, if you don't get this amount or whatever, we're going to have to not necessarily cut, but like shift direction and maybe dollar amounts need to go down or anything like that?
No, I think it's all kind of like unspoken. It's obvious that like I shouldn't be paid as the top tier rail guy snowboarder because that's not what I'm doing. But they're still keeping me on and keeping me, you know, at a level that I'm happy with because I'm doing all these other things. I think if I did only that and didn't do anything else, like I should get cut because I'm not even doing any bit of the job. But I try my best to still post on social, promote the brands as best I can in these things, and I think they're seeing the value in that. Because they got guys, Pat Fava, who's filming parts, winning contests, like he's that guy. And then I can be, I'm talking about 32 in general here, but then I can be kind of this like other side, talking to shops, doing stuff like that. You know, I'm helping run these contests like with Red Bull, and I'm more involved on the industry side. So I think they're like, cool, we got that and we got that. And they don't need you to pull away from that to like try to get me to film tricks because I just don't think that's as valuable for me right now.
So what happens though with eventually like whatever age, say you're 48, you're not going to be nose pressing a King Handrail when you're 48, most likely, I would assume. So like
I want to be.
But at some point the quality of the rail trick has to drop, but you still want to put out clips, maybe not necessarily in like a full-length video, maybe it just shifts to like social media where you feel less pressure. But like at what point are you just going to say, you know what, whatever, I'm just going to post things that feel good at the moment?
I don't know. I think that only would come when like, you know, my mind or my body's telling me that, or if there's really no opportunity. But not even that. Like, I mean, I think like JP being how old he is, right? If he was like posted a street clip, a brand new street clip of him doing something, people would trip. So there's something kind of cool about you can kind of have that distance from it and then come back and it could be really valuable, you know? So for me, I actually always said like, I want to do a backflip at 70. Like I think longevity starts to become kind of like the new trick. It's like, and I get that sometimes with people when I post something like, old dog still got it. I'm like, all right, like, you know, I'm trying. So I think to me, there becomes a little level of like, you get that little bump when he did this and he's this old.
Dude, that happens with Andrew Reynolds, right? He's like 45 or whatever, and he just got his shoe with New Balance and all that, and he's still putting out parts and crushing it. Have you shifted focus with your body then? Like, what do you do you're not taking ice baths every day, I would assume, but like, what have you been doing to try to stay healthy for it?
I'm super like interested in that side of things. Yeah.
Sure.
Like I go to the gym. I try to go like 5 times a week. You know, I try to like I said, walk 18 holes of golf. Like I'm trying to be as active as possible, trying to eat as healthy as I can. I'm trying to do whatever I can to feel good in my body at this age.
Yeah.
And it's been a total shift. Like when I was 22, 23, I was eating candy and drinking and just like a pile, and felt probably worse than I do like now.
Sure.
And now with like routines, and if it's like meditation or all these things that I just got kind of obsessed with over the last like, 3, 4, 5 years, it's had a compound effect to where I'm like, okay, I'm feeling good. And then mentally I'm able to like do the job of like the business. And then physically I can still strap in and snowboard. So
yeah,
I'm going to keep chasing that for sure. Not ice baths, but sauna, red light therapy. I got involved with my brother who's starting a company around CO2 therapy with like a big suit that you lay in and pump full of CO2. It helps with cell regeneration. So it's like
pro hockey player, retired pro hockey player brother is doing that.
Yeah, he's been super interested in health after hockey and helping these guys with injury and recovery and all sorts of things. So I'm excited to see where that takes off. It's called Air Therapeutics.
Right.
And I can't wait to see where that goes. But I just love stuff like that. Anything kind of new, not like buzzy and catchy, but just these things that have been around for a long time that you can purpose and use.
Yeah. Talking about the job, we should shift and talk about that a bit. So you started Public when you were still with Stepchild. This was like almost 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And you just kind of like threw graphics in your name on a board that was coming out through Stepchild at the time. And then it obviously like grew. But back then you still had to like fully focus on like getting tricks, right? Like it was really hard to focus on the brand versus now all this time has gone by. What role do you have with the brand? Because it's a lot bigger than just you now.
Public.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is a bit bigger, but it's still kind of the same size, to be honest. Like the brand itself has been, has grown.
Yeah.
But I try to keep it very, we don't have a ton of overhead. Like I don't want to have a bunch of people that it's still kind of the same guys we started it with. But to be honest, like Public back then, I felt the responsibility of I need to film tricks and I need to like be like a pro on the team,
like the face of it.
Yeah, to like to have it gain recognition. I think if I would have been 27 or whatever, 28 when I started it, and then took a step back and was like, I'm going to run the business, I don't think it has like, it doesn't have the legs. So I was actively, intentionally like, I'm going to start this and I'm going to be like, the team rider and push it and rider, owner, operator, all that.
Yeah.
And then I think just as my career just, grew on its own, just the responsibilities just shifted,
Sure.
It just became a little bit more hearing from reps, like, it'd be cool if you were at these trade shows, and that would be sweet if like you came to these shop tours. And then I just started to really like, there was a moment where I was like, I'm just going to get behind this brand. Like, this is my thing that I started. I used to kind of hide behind it. And some people would be like, I didn't even know you own Public. And I'm like, there's one moment where I was like, I'm just gonna be proud of this and kind of like shout it out a little bit more.
Sure.
And so I kind of started going more on these shows and just kind of, getting behind it a little bit more. And then in turn, that just kind of became more the role.
So is your role more so on the sales side then? Like developing the relationships with the distributors and all that? That's all still sales.
Yeah, it's honestly everything, man. I mean, I do all the design, we do all the marketing. Like
you do the design work?
I work with all the designers. So we have a designer that we work with, and then but I'm super involved on making sure everything's like what we want to make. And then I'm in every like sales meeting with the sales manager to make sure that's all going good.
Sure.
I'm in there packing boxes. I'm on these trade shows. I'm still a rider. So I kind of like wearing a lot of hats. I think because I'm so tied to it that I'm like, I don't want to delegate. And I know sometimes people say like, that's not healthy, but it's like, I just feel so much like attachment to it that I just want to be involved in everything.
One thing I've learned though in life is what's healthy and good for somebody isn't necessarily for somebody else.
Totally.
Like everybody's life is totally different. And I had a boss a long time ago who said, I quote this too often, but I was doing some dumb project at work and she told me, Chris, if you're not going to do it to 100%, don't bother doing it. And I think it's such a dumb saying because like I've learned as a business owner that you'll never have anything to 100%.
No.
And the best way to be the most effective is to get as many things to 90% or 95, whatever number you want to look at, but get as many things to about as good as you can without spending way too much time before then hopping over to the next thing. And then it's kind of cool when you can look at like everything you've been able to do.
Yeah.
Not only that, but like your 95% or whatever on this project, once you've done that over and over again, your 95% is way better than what your 100% would have been because now you're more well-rounded and you have more experience going into it. It's kind of fun to pop around and do all the different things.
Correct. I agree with that. And I think a lot of times people get that analysis paralysis where it's like, it's not perfect, I'm not putting it out. Meanwhile, like stuff is coming out all the time. So I kind of prided myself on, even when we started the board brand, when I started Public, I was like, I'm not going to talk about it until I actually have like a board.
Sure.
Because it's so easy to be like, I'm going to start a board brand. And then you just don't. You just talk about it and it never happens. But I was like, I'm not going to talk about it until I have a physical snowboard that I've made. So I think, like, to your point, like, executing and actually getting something out there in the world, it may not be perfect, but it's out there. And it's like a lot of times maybe people are scared of like the critique they might get when it gets out there.
Yeah.
But, you know, you're already building something else while you do that. You know, I think Virgil Abloh kind of says that too. It's like you just put stuff out, create and create and create, and it's going to get different. It's going to get better. But to sit there and dream up this, what is perfection to who?
Well, it's
perfect to me, but then that person might still hate it. And still, when we put out stuff, there's people who love our and people that hate it.
Yeah. So if everybody likes it, nobody loves it.
Totally.
It's just kind of how it goes, right? What was the last thing you put out from Public? That's what was like your favorite individual item, whether it was a board or whatever. It could be a video that you guys did with somebody. It could be a collaboration with somebody.
Yeah, I think one thing that comes to mind, I'd say there's maybe a couple things that come to mind. We did a big collaboration with Vans.
Oh, cool.
That was incredible. Like, we did a board, a boot, you know, a sock, a shoe.
How did that happen? Did you contact them? Or?
That was kind of Daryl Mathis rides for us. He rides for Vans. And it's just like planting these seeds. Like, what if we did a collab? And then for them, they're booked out like so many years out. So it's these meetings that, can we pencil you in for 3 years later?
Sure.
And we're like just so excited. We did a whole like video around it called Out of the Public Eye. And like they helped us do this video. Like, that felt like this is like a real thing. Like, Vans wouldn't just do a collab with anybody.
Yeah.
So to be a global collaboration with Vans, like in their catalog, in all this stuff, was like a pretty cool like accolade. We were like really stoked on that.
Do you have a hoarding problem with keeping one of everything you've ever made, or no?
I don't, unfortunately. I wish I did, because my dad's moving houses and we're like, it's like we kept some boards and some stuff, but I mean, it's just like, I wanted that stuff, but I'm also like, what am I going to do with this?
Yeah.
We have a bunch of stuff at my office and a handful of stuff. I like to keep at least something from a season.
Sure.
But to keep one of every single thing, I think is a little bit wild.
Yeah, I kept one board from every year. Although I missed year 2 and then ended up finding somebody who had one that was still brand new.
Yeah.
So I do have the collection of like every board that the shop ever did, because I did one like every year for that like whole 10 years. So you said that you're involved with the whole team, but how many people actually work for Public? I know you and Nick, but like, how many people are behind the scenes with Public, and then how many people ride for it? And are any of the riders kind of like Weekend Skateboards, where they like kind of help out with the brand as well, or anything like that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in total, like, those aren't like employees. We have like an accountant and we have like a sales manager. So probably 3 or 4 kind of like internal like that. And the designer, we have, I think, 8 to 10 riders right now.
Okay.
We have 6 to 8 reps right now. We have 8 to 10 distributors, all,
Sure.
So it's like all that is a lot, but it's very like contracted kind of, what I mean?
Yeah.
So like full-time people, there's only like 3 to 4 people that are kind of there.
What is coming up with Public next? Right now, I know it's off season. So are you like working on new board designs? How many boards do you have in line? Are you pretty much just like, let's just do new graphics, or is it like development of boards and stuff this time of year?
Development of boards. Like, I'm proud that we create our own molds when we do a new line of boards. So we actually build a new mold. We hire like a full-on designer engineer to build out like a unique shape that we can at least say that's ours.
Yeah. Okay.
So we have some open molds that we started with that still are in the line, but anything new that we've done, we've built new molds, which is really cool. And then, right now we have a free ride board that we just released like 2 years ago. We have a brand new one with like a more pointed nose and a more like shovel tip. Like, we're up to like 8 models right now.
Oh, wow.
With like 3 sizes per, so like 20 something SKUs. Like, it's growing for sure, but the plan isn't to like get so big and have so many options. It's kind of stay right here and kind of have something for everyone, but not go too crazy.
Do you geek out and go to the factories themselves?
Yeah, for sure.
I got to go to the Santa Cruz factory forever ago. I interviewed Andrew Cannon a long time ago, and I went to their like R&D department, and they had like an office where it was like this dude had like sandpaper on a like whole wheel thing, so he could hold urethane to it and be like, this is how this is going to power slide, or blah blah. And like, I geeked out for like 3 hours.
Our factory has a machine that will bend it back as far as it goes until it snaps. And then they write that down of like, it has to pass a certain test, which is pretty rad. And they have one where it's like it's just like beating the out of these boards, but like in a more like what could happen in the streets or whatever. So it's like, it has to pass this threshold before it even makes its way to like the customer, which is pretty cool.
Do you break boards ever anymore?
I don't break a lot of boards. We have urethane sidewalls. Like, I don't break a lot of boards. Me personally, like, we get some people who are just really gnarly on boards, and like, it's still wood and glue, and like, it can break, But our boards are holding up pretty well, which is awesome,
dude.
But no, I love that. And it's funny because I go to the factory and they have all these like processes you can do on the top sheet.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because it's like, oh, no one's done that since the 90s. And I'm like, show me that. Because it's like, where no one's doing like metal tips or like all the stuff that like is outdated is like what I think is sick now.
Sure.
So we're like, oh, dude, let's do holographic on the top sheet. And they're like tripping. They're like, no one's done that in forever. I'm like, that's what I want to do. So it's cool to go there and explore all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, and being able to like utilize any tool, and trends come back around. Dude. Yeah. Like all that stuff from the 90s and 80s or whatever is definitely back. So tell me about the Red Bull thing. Because when we're younger, I feel like snowboarding is probably in the same way. Everyone hates corporations. They're like, these don't belong in skateboarding. This doesn't belong. Same way with the Olympics. People are like, you know, and then as you get older, you're like, but these types of events wouldn't happen if you didn't have backing like this. So how did you get involved with Red Bull?
Yeah, it was very random, I would say. Eric Doomer was a good friend of mine. He's a snowboarder. And he called me one day to ask if I want to ride in the heavy metal. In Duluth was the very first one. He's like, hey, we're going to bring this back. He just kind of invited me as like a rider, and I was like, I don't know if I want to like ride in it. Like, obviously it's like going to be crazy with the young kids and stuff, but I was like, I don't know. Like, and he's like, well, do you want to judge? And I was like, judging would be kind of cool. Like I've judged some stuff, like that could be cool and be a part of it. I was like, it's cool you're bringing this back. Like, he was basically, well, there is this other role that's like competition director. And I was like, that sounds kind of interesting. And that's like picking the riders, like running, making sure the setup is cool, like kind of being the like consultant to make it like the snowboard contest and like appeal to the riders side of it a little bit more. Yeah. Like I kind of would represent like the riders and make sure that if the setup's not right, we can fix it, we can change. So we just sat down and had coffee. And what I was kind of hyped on is I could have easily just been like, I'm not a competition director. Like, I'm a snowboarder, I'm a this, and just like said no. But I was like, I'll just see where this goes. Like, that sounds cool and to be involved. And so I said, yeah, and picked the riders, and it went really well. The first one, and that's when I met Oren Tanzer, who's like on the production side of it, like built all the rails, sets up the whole thing. His company, Frankie Bird, is the one that like Red Bull hires to kind of put the whole thing on. Okay. Met Oren, like hit it off with Oren. I knew him from like the Mammoth days, but we became really good friends. And then it was just like, they're going to do it again the next year, you know, and this time it's in Detroit, and they've just kept bringing on Oren and bringing on me to do it. So It's been really incredible. Like, it's grown into this really big thing now. And like I said, I just kind of, that whole thing has opened so many doors, and I could have just not even had that by just feeling like that's not my identity. Yeah. Like, I'm not a competition director. Like, no. Sure. Or thinking I'm like too cool for it or something. Sure. But there was something about it. I was like, you know what? This is interesting. And I was just at that time just trying all new things. And it was like, this is just another new thing. I want to learn this.
Yeah, I think you should just always take a meeting if you have time for kind of anything, because you don't necessarily know what it is they're looking for, or what other opportunities may pop up, or what relationships or whatever may pop up from it. So the Red Bull thing we're talking about, heavy metal, is like a street contest where you take over a spot which otherwise would be illegal, that you probably can't. Yeah. And now you bring hundreds of people, lights, obviously you have the speakers, all that type of stuff, which is wild, because it wasn't the last one, but a couple ones ago, this past winter anyways, was at the state capitol here in Minneapolis.
Yeah, we had one. St. Paul. Last year was at the state capitol, and then we had one, this winter at the state capitol again. We did 2 in a row. Oh, wow. And then we did Boston City Hall. That was last season as well. Sure. And these things have grown. Like, Boston City Hall was like 20,000 people. Oh my God. Like, cops were like, this is like Celtics parade type people. And we were really proud of that. But again, that's the access that Red Bull can bring. They're going to be able to get the permit for City Hall, get the permit for the Capitol, and bring all these people who, it's just a spectacle. I think a lot of people that are watching know snowboarding, but to watch it in that fashion, and Zeb Powell being there and all this stuff, it was really cool to be a part of that, because it did feel like it was affecting larger, the greater good of snowboarding. Like, hopefully people see this and it's like, it's not so frowned upon, or, you always just want to try to grow the awareness of what we're doing.
Do you work with the tourism departments or anything to help figure out things with the city? Because I do some of that stuff with Eau Claire, and there's a lot of behind the scenes red tape, but also not that much, because there's not that many people making those decisions. Yeah,
there's a lot to figure out with insurance and permitting and things like that. You're putting on a contest where now there's someone's going down a handrail that there could be injuries, and they're always worried about what's their risk of that, but I think they work it out, and then the tourism board is usually really excited, because it's like, this is different, this is unique, they can build around it, and St. Paul's been great to work with, and everyone's been awesome to work with.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they see the advantage of it, right? Like all these tourism boards, because I work with Visit Eau Claire, and all the cities have like a visit or travel to whatever.
Yeah.
They have some kind of tourism board, and these people, their jobs are to figure out how do we get young people to come here.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So there's like, they're always looking at different like arts things like skate parks and snowboarding, all those types of things. And there's not that many people that really work for these like individual organizations. No. So once you build relationships with those people and their minds are like open to an idea, like you could, and honestly, even now that you did the Red Bull one, you guys could do a random pop-up like little event kind of anywhere in the city without it being a massive thing if you just like, because you have those relationsures, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and you kind of have that proof of concept. You're like, the first one we did, it was like, I don't know how many people are going to show up, like what's it going to be like? And then now, you know, you're basically like, you're showing them like, hey, you're going to get 10 to 15,000 people here at your restaurants and bars all around, you know, for these things. And so it's definitely not a bad thing. And the you know, the exposure they get from the magazines and the news and all that kind of stuff, it's just, there's a lot of upside to it, I think. But again, I think Red Bull, people just are so, that name is so synonymous with like entertainment and action, and they do a really good job with their events. So people know it's going to be like something that's really worth attending. What was your favorite trick you've witnessed at one of these heavy metal things so far? That's a good question. I think what sticks out, like maybe like the St. Paul one of my riders was this kid Quinn Alul, and he's not really known as a rail guy at all. And so he was kind of, I was like, I wanted him to come. We brought him out and had this cool trip around it, but he's like not a contest guy. He's like a very much a video part guy. But to watch him kind of snap into contest mode and get kind of like competitive, and then he ended up doing a backside 180 onto like the big kink, and he was like the first one to like get to the end, and I think he ended up winning like that zone. It was just so cool because it was like he just really made use of that moment. I think the crowd and everything like that. So that one sticks out. In Boston, we got to see Zeb Powell, like, you know, just be so infectious with kids and people. Like I've never seen a celebrity like of that in snowboarding. And that was really cool to see. He's really like transcended sport into where people are freaking out at him just walking around. And it was just so cool to see, and to see him ripping on a snowboard, be the most down to earth dude. And like, I think those moments, I'm just like, this is really cool to just be there to witness. Has he been around for a super long time? I didn't come across him until fairly recently. And now he's just like this mega celebrity because no one snowboards like him, but he wasn't a big name when you were coming up or anything. No, he's fairly new to like that side of it, you know, probably for sure like 5-6 years. Rode for Nitro for a little bit. It's kind of when I heard about him. Gets on Burton and gets on these things, and now, you know, he did really well in the X Games, and he's done a really good job like creating this whole lane for himself with how he snowboards, the sponsors he has, you know, the events he surrounds himself with. Like his personal brand has just like exploded kind of after that. Yeah. So yeah, but like I said, like he's the nicest dude and just loves snowboarding. Like some guys maybe get to that level and they don't snowboard as much because they're busy like doing something else or going to basketball games or something. Yeah, making he's like appearances. Still up snowboarding all the time. So yeah, he's great, like representative of like what we're doing for sure. Has Red Bull gotten in the way of all your work with Public though? Because it's got to be a lot of work for that. Has it taken away from your time of that, or are you just trying to juggle both? You just balance it. Yeah. Sure. I mean, it's like, and that's where the winters do get pretty busy, right? It's like, and you ask like, can you go film tricks? It's like, well, I got this and I got that. Some of it you can kind of do on the road. But no, it's like, they're all kind of work hand in hand. Like if I do a good job with the Red Bull thing and I go to the Red Bull thing and I'm in Public is still kind of like in the orbit of what we're doing. Like at the St. Paul one, they let us pop our Public tent and like sell some merch, and like, that's all ties into being really like really helpful, you know? Yeah, you're basically then a sponsor of the event without really being a normal paid sponsor. Exactly, yeah. The way that you would be. And that's so nice of Red Bull to do that. Sure. Like for just to be like, you've been helping us out if you want to pop a tent. So I think all of it kind of works hand in hand. Like I don't think I'm doing many things that take away from anything. And if the things that I bring into like my workload, the goal is that they rise everything, you know? So I don't know what I'm going to do next, but it probably is going to help, you know, all these kind of things that I'm doing. As you're watching these guys huck themselves, I know thankfully there haven't been any like really serious injuries at any of these heavy metal ones yet, but you've had some serious injuries. Is it harder for you to watch now than it used to be? Like, are you scared for the kids when you're watching them jump in comparison to like, you're always scared when you watch people like huck themselves, but now knowing like what your body feels like after that, do you look at it differently? A little bit. I'm super confident in the ability of the people that we bring into the contest for sure. Yeah. But there's a lot of like unlike foreseeable things that can happen, you know, like an edge catch on a rail or something like that. I think what they're doing out there is super dangerous. So every time you're kind of like a little bit jumpy, but there hasn't been anything crazy. And I'm really impressed actually, because sometimes the setups are like, whoa, like this got bigger than I thought. Like the Capitol was over this giant pillar, like a 50-foot jump. And I'm like, I wouldn't hit that. And then you just see them guinea pig, and pretty soon they're just like ripping. And I'm like, I'm really impressed by the people that we bring in, how quick they can like adapt. And then as soon as some people start doing it, the other people start doing it. And pretty soon you have this like infectious, and they're just ripping. And I'm like, the things that I'm like, I wonder if anyone's going to hit that. And then everyone does is really cool.
I guess I watch skateboarding nowadays, and I remember the first time I saw Clay Kreiner skating like the mega ramp without pads, and I was like, geez, that dude's nuts. But now when I watch it, I'm like way more like, I feel like I'm such a dad when I look at it, and I'm like, you should be wearing blah, blah, blah. But it's really, I'm just like, man, I remember when Omar Salazar's career was over in a second because he smashed his kneecap. Yeah. Like, and it's preventable. I know that you had a really gnarly head injury years ago. Yeah. How do you feel about the whole helmet thing now? Did it change your perspective on it at all? Because I still don't see, I mean, the skateboarding, you're starting to see it a little bit, right? Andy Anderson is like really pushing the like wear helmets in the street. And it's obviously not a bad thing to wear a helmet, but it's still not really catching on.
Yeah, I think it's just all, everything can be dangerous, right? Yeah. And so there was something about like, when I came back from my head injury and I did wear a helmet, and I felt like it really messed with like my balance, and it just messed with like kind of it just didn't work, And I think if there's an alternative of something that can do that, and I think people are trying to do slimmer helmets and things like that, but it just comes down to like, do what you want to do. Like if you want to wear a helmet, then wear a helmet for sure. And if your parents are telling you to, then wear one. I think for sure up to like 18, you should wear a helmet. Your brain is still pretty developing. Like I think it's a good idea to wear a helmet. I don't really have like I'm just not going to say one way or the other. It just has to work for you. I think your life's about choices, and I made the choice to not, and I'm dealing with the consequence of a deaf ear,
Yeah. Looking back on it, do you wish you would have worn one?
Maybe. I think where I hit my head, it was in a spot that probably wouldn't have saved it. I hit it like back here, and like, a helmet wouldn't have done that. But yeah, you can look at everything in your life like that, right? Like you can go, of course I wish I would have done this if that would have been the case, but that's not what happened.
What was the scariest individual trick that you did? Not necessarily which was like the ender of which video part or whatever. Which one do you remember was the scariest for you?
The one that comes to mind is like I hit this rail in Finland, and it was like for child support era. So it was pretty early on in my career, but it was in Finland up on this like double-decker bridge, and there was like a 15-foot run-in. So the only way to get speed was to go back and go over the bridge. Board rock and then come back down. And it was a massive highway of just cars and probably 40 feet. So if for some reason they pulled me up a little bit too far and I slip back, like I'm falling like you look back on that, you're like, that's not even worth it. Like, don't hit that spot. It's not meant for it. Sure. But I was just, so young and fired up that I'm like, no, I think that'll work. Like do this. And it ended up working out. But like stuff like that is so dangerous and so scary that like, for sure, I would not do that again. You just get desensitized to it, though, like during that time frame a bit, right? Yeah, you care way more about the clip and what it's going to look like and this, and that's just like a little bit in the way of like, yeah, that's scary, but nothing's going to happen. Sure. And I remember like your brain definitely does shift, like where my age is now. You think about the things that can happen if you get hurt. You think about the people it's going to affect or the way your life's going to be different if you do get hurt. So when you're that young, I do believe there's like almost something in your brain that's like not developed to where you're just like, yeah, fuck it. Like I'm just going to go. Yeah. I mean, you just think you're invincible. You're invincible. What was the scariest trick that you witnessed somebody else do? Anything with like a big drop or something where somebody could get really hurt is always so scary. There's a lot of stuff. I've been there for some crazy stuff that you're like, are we really sure we're like doing this? And then they do it and you're just like, oh, there's like a relief and an excitement, but it's just like some of this stuff is so like milliseconds could go off wrong, especially when you're doing like a winch or a bungee or something. You're relying on a different form of speed. Like there's so many factors to it, right? Yeah. Like I probably can't picture anything like off the top of my head of like that's the one, but anything in those eras where guys were filming like just crazy stuff, there was always that like JP era, Jeremy era of like pulling in with a car and going over like a bunch of stuff. So, all that just comes to mind of like, that always came out unscathed, but it's very scary every time.
There's a lot of ones that are off roofs and stuff where people are coming to like the tiniest bit of like an angle. Yes. And if you didn't get it just right, you wouldn't catch until you're 20 feet lower.
Exactly.
You know, and
stuff
something
like
could be way gnarly. So I have this question. This one's kind of like a little bit random, but I've never understood, I'm sure you've gotten this a lot of times, how people like balance on a round rail for a 50 because you don't have an axle with a wheel to pinch it. How in the world do people do that?
You're using that circle part of the rail, and you're using like the base and the edge of the, like it's flat, but you're balancing and you're kind of wiggling through it, and that kind of acts sort of as the truck, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So like if it's flat and you're on it, you're locked in good, you don't really have to do it. If you start going like this, you try to put weight on your toes to kind of come back over. Okay. It's very like, it's weird, but it does work.
Does it work that way for presses too?
Press is tougher because you're just on this part, like that tiny part of the board, like, right? If you're nose pressing, you're only on this much, so it's harder to like bend like that. So no, but like 50 for some reason, you can kind of do it. You can kind of, it's like a tightrope. I guess I would maybe explain it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I've never understood every time that I watch people do it. And I've done plenty of 50s on a snowboard, but for me, it's just like as my balance falls off, I'm just like, I guess I'm just hopping that way.
Yeah. And you can't do much to save it. If your weight's way off, like you're not coming back over.
Sure.
But it's more like these micro adjustments of like, you're kind of doing that. You know?
So that's why it took you forever to do that one like 100-foot plus
for sure,
rail or whatever, because there's like so much to hold on to. So I recently interviewed Lucas Buford, who I know that you're friends with as well, and I asked him what his favorite board graphic was that he didn't do, but then also his favorite that he did. And being like an artist, his were really, really good answers. So I'm curious what your answers would be. What's your favorite snowboard graphic that wasn't something that was yours or public, just one growing up or whatever, or it could be something recently that you were like, that's the coolest board I've ever seen?
That's a good question. What did he say?
His favorite one was an Andy Jenkins board. That was a girl Tony Ferguson board when he started in like 1993.
Okay.
And he said at the time he didn't even know that like it was an Andy Jenkins board. He went to like the skate park and somebody pointed out and was like, that's the Andy Jenkins one. He's like, no, it's Tony Ferguson.
Right.
And didn't really get the concept of it, but that was like his inspiration for skate art.
Yeah, I think for me it was all those, anything I grew up like when those graphics meant like so much. Like I think I'm thinking about like a John Cooley board from like when I saw him in like the People era. He had like this Santa Cruz board with like Cookie Monster on it, which is so random, but that one like sticks out as like, I think just the ones that stick out as like having the most like meaning.
Yeah.
Or like friends of mine that have had pro models that I'm just like sick, like they nailed it with the graphic, like things like that. Like the Cooley one for sure. Early Burton, like even with Public, we tried to like, I loved like the 90s graphics, a little simpler, like sometimes really simple is almost better. And
sure.
Yeah. So I would say like anything in that era, but I'm trying to think of something like specific. Like Nima Jalali had this M3 board that had like polka dots on it.
Sick.
And it's just like random, but it's like that one they just stick out and you're like, yeah, that's sick.
What's your favorite one that you've made then?
That I've made. I really like the one we just did with Mike Gigliotti. He's an artist out of LA.
He's so sick.
Yeah, he's the best. And like same kind of thing like you're saying. We kind of got connected and I was just like, would you ever want to do a board? And he was down.
Yeah.
And just like his style is so cool and like fits our aesthetic so well. And like just how he was to work with. He was like the sweetest guy. And someone like that you think is going to take so long to like, he did it. He was like, here's some stuff I whipped up. And it was all so sick like the next day.
Yeah.
So I was just like blown away by how cool of a guy he was. And again, just to have a dude like that attached to Public means a lot, like as far as like maybe like it helps legitimize what we're doing, and if people like that are interested in working with us, like it's a really cool feeling,
especially for the cross collaboration between the skateboarding world, because he's done so much stuff with Thrasher and Baker. And did you see his Let It Kill You series?
Yeah, of course.
Dude, Ben McQueen, I don't know if you know that guy, but we connected over Instagram a while ago and we're gonna do an interview. He had to cancel like his last flight, but I've been watching every one of those that have came out. Like, so sick, these docuseries. Everyone needs to go watch those ones.
Those are great. Yeah, they're incredible. And I think like even after that, I like texted Mike and I was like, dude, like honored that you're doing, I don't know, you just like, you see this side of people that they don't get to see, and Mike is like the nicest dude, and like they show that cool like softer side to him in the interview with that series. And yeah, man, just like getting to do stuff with people like that you never thought you could.
Yeah.
I think that is extra special.
Dude, I haven't met any like heroes that have disappointed me. I think I've just been lucky in that way, but like everyone says, don't meet your heroes. I just really haven't had very many negative experiences with people. Almost everyone's been super cool.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, maybe you got good taste in heroes then.
Yeah, I think so. So I have a trick that got away when we were filming our video parts. We went to, it was at the stadium, and there's this like platform that kind of sticks out. So I was trying to like pop up manual across it, and then the other ledge is there. So it was like manual into a 5.0 front 180 up.
Yeah.
And I did a couple of them. There's like rumble strips there.
Yeah.
Did one where I landed in the rumble strips and like had to sit down.
Yeah.
Clip just didn't end up doing it because there's a whole crew of people there. And I was like, well, I'll come back and get it. Yeah. Never got it. That's the one that got away. Yeah. What's the trick that got away?
I mean, there's got to be so many. Like, I mean, that long rail was like that had gotten away for 5 years. Yeah, got it. But I would say there's not a ton. You know what? A lot of times if you're traveling internationally and you're in a place that's not really going to get snow again, like those are kind of gone forever, you know? So sure. I'm trying to think of like one specific, but there's just been so many where you kind of got to put it in the rear view too, because you're like, I can't dwell on this either. But there's I mean, I used to battle tricks for so long and not get them.
Sure.
And they would just ruin the next day. I was just so invested, and it was almost unhealthy because it's like it would just be this only thing I'm thinking about and caring about and all that. And it's like, we got to go back and we got to get it, or like, you know, you just get obsessed with it. So when you put a lot of time and effort, you just don't get it and truly just never get it, and you walk away. It's tough.
What about a trick that you got that you wish you could do again? Whether it was like you just popped out of the rail a little bit early and you're like, well, I think it's good. All your friends hyped you up and they're like, it's great. Yeah. And then you watch it later and you're like, God, I wish I would have done that a couple more times.
Yeah, there's so many like that. I think to your point with like the perfectionism thing, there's almost every single thing in a clip I can see that I'm like, I wish I would have done that a little bit differently.
Sure.
Almost every single one I can feel like, you know, you could have came off just a little bit more perfect or pressed a little bit more or something like that, you know. I did that back 3 on the rail in child support, and I land and I kind of like, it's kind of 5.0, kind of 50, like, but no one had done a 360 on before. And so it was like, we took it because it was like something different and brand new, but I'm like looking at that, like, not like I could do it again, but do I wish I would have done it like how I want to do it? Yeah. But that's literally every trick. But that comes down to like, if that's the case and you don't put out anything because it's not perfect, you're just not. But you're not putting anything out.
Sometimes it's just a matter of you didn't see the video. So like you're trying to recall in your mind. You're like, I think I did it this way.
And you're always way more critical than other people. Like when someone, you show that clip and you go, so huh? They're like, what are you talking about? Yeah. So that's happened a lot too. And that happens with me. And people are like, I don't like this. And I'm like, I don't even see what you see.
Yeah.
So it can be like very subjective.
Sure. Talking about, I want to talk about skateboarding with rails. Growing up, we used to point at rails and say that's a snowboard rail.
Yeah.
Like it used to be a saying because like that's not possible on a skateboard, right?
Yeah.
But there are some. Like in your South Pole or your Southpaw part, you front boarded this like I don't even know how many kinks that like double shotgun rail thing has. Yeah. But Ian Sherman like lip slid that or whatever.
Yep.
Which is insane that skateboarders are now hitting what I thought were exclusively snowboard rails. What's the craziest skateboard rail trick that you've seen done on a rail that people normally snowboard?
Dude, I can't think of. I mean, that's crazy, the one that he did. And I knew he had done that. And that was almost like, I was like, that's sick that he did that. I'm trying to think because there's, I mean, some of that Kyle Walker stuff that he's done is huge. And like, I don't, you know, I think maybe not people have snowboarded on that. Sometimes it's just more like, you know, where does it get? A lot of them are grass run-ups, so you can't skate them. But there's been a bunch. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff on like the Rail Garden 16 that's pretty crazy. Like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy that you say that. Like, this is a snowboard rail and skaters, but they're doing that. Like Leo's doing huge stuff, and it's cool. It's almost like we got to step up our game.
Have you ever seen a rail in a skate video part where you're like, we should go there when it's winter?
I'm sure, but I can't think off the top of my head. You know, it was funny though, when that clip came out of like the big long one in Omaha, like so many skaters hit me up to be like, where is that thing? And it's like, it's behind me. You can see the name of the school.
Sure.
I just be like, it's in Omaha, it's at the school. But like, it's just funny how it's like, that's how it kind of goes. You're like, where's that spot? And it was just funny to get that off of a snowboard clip. Was funny.
That's where the progression's at, man. There's that like 45 stair that's somewhere around here in Minnesota that's been hit by, I think, a couple different people now. I don't know if you know which clip I'm talking about.
Well, Nesser did a bunch of stuff here that we've snowboarded on. He did that one in like, I think it's in Powderhorn or something. He did a big 50-50 on a rail that we certainly snowboard on. So
that was the one that was the cover of Thrasher or whatever. It said longest rail ever done because it was 50 stairs.
That one is like a good snowboard rail here. So
yeah, dude,
totally, man.
Dude, he's a legend. What role these days does a board company have in like a pro and am's career? In skateboarding, it's like, that's not what pays them really. It's more so just you want to be backed by this, but they make their money from shoes, or they make their, you know what I mean? But what role does public actually have in a snowboarder's career?
It's getting harder and harder to define, honestly. Like, I think it started that way when we had bigger brands in the industry, when you had Nike and Adidas and things like that. Like, we had riders who were on Adidas that would be like obviously their main source of income, and then they would ride for Public as kind of like a cool core brand that really complements Adidas well. It's like very, you know, big and corporate, and then you have this cool, and I think Adidas liked that too. It was like, we want these guys that you see it in skating all the time. It's those limo guys skating for Nike and things like that. But since those brands have since pulled out, it's kind of left this weird void of like, well, now does the board brand responsible for paying what they were? And so it has been kind of harder to define with the lack of bigger brands that are kind of helping, you know, facilitate those salaries a little bit.
What expectations do you put on riders? Because it's difficult. Everybody brings different things. And the hardest part with relationships is like when somebody feels their value is something and what you think their value is different. It has nothing to do with personal. It's just like realistically what this brings to the brand, and sometimes those don't meet.
100%. And I'll be honest, it's been a hard thing for me to navigate, because it's like, I'm the owner, I'm the team manager, I'm also these people's friends, I'm their kind of colleagues, so I see everything, right? Like, I'm like, you know, there's simple things that you can do, which as like posting on social media is just like shows that you're hyped on the brand and things like that. But a brand of our kind of size and what we're trying to do, it's like, it's not beneficial for me to have this like rigid thing of what they have to do. I want people that are representing the brand. They're looking unique. They're looking authentic, and they're giving good exposure to our brand in their own way. Okay. That's kind of how I see it. Now, that being said, there is things that like you're paid to do something. There is sort of these like obligations, right? But like, it looks different. We have Jib Girl on the team who has a bunch of followers and has this really awesome social media presence with fans and with people. Her kind of posting on Instagram and promoting the brand has a ton of value. And then there's people who we want you to film a video part because you're with, you know, Dustbox and these things. So as long as people are out there working hard and caring about it and being passionate and kind of like, if a kid asks about their board on the hill, like talking about it and being a little bit, you know, knowledgeable and flying the flag, like that's kind of what I'm looking for. You know, I think unfortunately, you know, it's not like the thing where you can say you didn't do X, Y, and Z, you know, it's all a bigger thing. Like Ben talking to the right kid at the right time at the shop could have a really big lasting effect, you know?
Sure.
So I don't try to put too many like metrics on what it is. It's just a couple things that you know when someone's kind of doing a good job at their job.
So how do you go about it then? Like, I know there's a lot of brands that they have like quarterly meetings to go over and say, these are what we're going to pay you out incentive wise because you had this cover, you had this video part, you had blah, blah, blah. You know, and different companies structure it differently. But when you have something really small like that, you want to believe everyone's just going to be as hyped as the day you put them on forever. But that's just not the case.
It's not. And to be honest, it's like I said, it's something that I kind of, I do struggle with because I want to give opportunities to people. But the size we're at, you know, they need these other sponsors to really like make it work. Yeah. Like I can get you something and get you on trips and do that. But there's kind of a lot of pieces to the puzzle where this becomes like your main job or something like that, you know? But we do contracts with people. We do social media incentives, which is cool. Like we do board royalties if they have a pro model. Like there's all these different ways to kind of like, and then it kind of is up to them to like go out and sell the product. And if you do, you're going to get a good chunk, you know? And that's, I know skating is pretty royalty based too, where it's like, you know, get a small base and then a commission basically off your boards. Yeah,
but I mean, things come to an end with people. It just happens, and it could be because this person is just going a different direction and they're still popping. Yeah. Or it could be that it's just like they're just blowing it, or their life is going a different direction outside of snowboarding or whatever. How do you handle the conversation even?
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, we haven't had to have too many people. We've had people come and quit, and it's like I try to be ultra cool about that. Like my good friend Lance Hacker ran a company called Ashbury for a while.
Yeah.
And he said something that always stuck with me. It was like 15 years ago. He's like, I would never want someone riding for me that doesn't want to ride for me.
Sure.
So there's not this like, you got to stay on. He's like, if someone doesn't want to be here, then I don't really want them here. So when we have people quit, I just go like, dude, if that's what you think's best for you, then I hope you go and do it. And I hope that's great. And the hard thing for me is I don't give myself that same grace when it's the other way around.
Sure.
I feel like I'm probably like, I'm ruining someone's dream or all these things, you know? And like to what you said, it's really tough. It's really tough to balance friendship and responsibilities and just like things that have run their course.
Have you kind of gotten desensitized a little bit to the harder conversations over time, or do you just know how to navigate
maybe
them
barely,
better?
but I'm a really like sensitive person. So it's like,
Sure.
It's tough for me. Like it's really hard for me to tell people that to even like, hey, you're not really doing your job. And one thing that, you know, I'd critique myself on and have accountability on is I have a tendency to like let it build up.
Yeah.
And then I say, and you haven't done this, this, and this. And the person's like, I didn't even know that. So I'm trying to live by a little more of that, like an unsaid expectation is a premature resentment. So
Sure.
instead of like wishing someone knew how to act, it's like you kind of tell them. And then if there's a pattern of still not doing it, you can have that conversation, but at least there's that previous kind of like, you know, it's that premature conversation's been said.
Sure.
Instead of, it's like relationships and friendships and stuff like, they're not doing exactly what I want them to do. It's like that they don't know how to do it. They're doing it their way.
Yeah, but communicating that, like, I think can be difficult because every person is different. What they think is a small thing that you're asking them to do, you may think is a big thing, or vice versa. Totally. Like sometimes people, if you want them to post on social media, they're like, this ruins what I'm doing.
You're 100%.
When it doesn't, you know, but in their mind it does, so maybe it does.
You're 100% right. And then it's like, okay, well then come to me with like a solution. Like how can we all feel good about what this is? I'm just coming with you with like what I've seen kind of like works and seems to be like the base level of like riding for a brand. Like no one in this world who has a sponsor is told that they're not supposed to like just be active in some way on if it's social media. You know probably skaters who've gotten dropped because they don't have an Instagram account. Yeah. That's like their decision, which is like good on them for sticking to it. But in this day and age, it's just like it's free advertising. It's free. It's just like a way to kind of show. I always go like it's a way to show you're still hyped on the brand. Yeah. And like when I see you posting, it's like rad, like that's so cool, you know? Yeah. And I'm like, I still have sponsors, I still post. So it's not like I'm telling you to do this stuff and I'm not doing it.
So what about like intellectual rights or intellectual property for say clips or for whatever? Mm-hmm. I know this happens in skateboarding sometimes where people, you know, they film this, one brand wants it, another brand wants it. Yeah. So if somebody's contract is with somebody else, like what dictates what's going to go in a public video? And does that ever come into like a conflict with other brands or anything of like, this should be in ours? No, this should be in ours.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's all like probably who you go on the trip with. Like if let's say one of our riders rides for, let's say it's Vans. Yeah. And they paid for every trip in this thing. I can't just grab that clip and like, that's mine now.
Sure. But if not every trip's paid by a brand. Huh? Not every trip is paid by a brand, right?
I'm saying like if it's a Vans trip. Yeah. And if for a magazine or something, like, we could probably repost it after they've done what they're doing with it. But like if they're going on a public trip, same kind of thing. If we're paying a photographer, if it's all for that, like I wouldn't expect them to just get that clip either. So it kind of goes off like trips and then what they're filming for. But ultimately, like, as long as they're getting stuff and it's going somewhere, it still helps us because they're riding the product. They're out there, they're doing it. Sure. You know?
Yeah, but not every trip is paid for by a brand specifically is what I'm getting at. So like, because this runs, so skateboarding, right? Like there are filmers and they're just like crew, homie, whatever. Yeah. There's no money involved. They're filming with this person. Yeah. So there's no brand directly attached to ownership of what this is. It's just like the one dude who filmed it who technically owns it, but it could go to anybody. Yeah. And something epic happens like the Joe Sexton rail, right? Where it's like well, this is a cover. We want this for the ender of this video. Like it's an important clip. Who gets it?
Well, that was for Videograss, so that makes sense. It was Videograss trip, just like I think a lot of skate stuff. Let's say the guy's working on a Converse part. Yeah. It's a really good clip. It's probably in his best interest to put it in the Converse part. You know, rarely in snowboarding are they working on a bunch of different stuff at the same time, and it's kind of understood. Like, if it's a Vans project, if it's a bigger project, like even Ride would be like, no, we want it to go to that. That's going to help his video, right? And, you know, there's a lot of stuff where you can kind of reuse it in B footage and things like that for other brands. Sure. But most of the time you're going with at least a production company or a brand. There's not as much of like, or you just know what you're filming for.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of times where like people are going out 3-4 riders, camera, photographer, and they don't have a project they're working on. Yeah, right. Okay. There's like already like, this is going to go somewhere that my sponsors are going to be involved in.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Just because, like I said, skateboarding is not necessarily like that right now. There's still, plus there's a lot of this whole like battling of you hit this trick at this, especially if it's a famous spot, you want this clip to come out faster before somebody else gets that clip and then puts it out, because the world doesn't know who landed it first. There's always running into things. So as far as like learning new things, when I interviewed you last time, like 4 years ago, you're still somewhat fresh into like being full-time into the business, right? Because you're still doing so much pro snowboarding. And this side, you've grown so much more. What is the most recent thing that you've learned as far as like running public? Not the biggest overarching thing, but what's the most recent thing?
I mean, I think you learn, I mean, you know how it is. We talk about this stuff all the time, but I think you learn stuff all the time. Maybe like the one, it's just always takes longer than you think. I feel like I always go back to that. Like, and you know, it's hard when it's it's just, you know, how do you balance between doing like your own thing and what works for you, but having it affect so many other people is tough. So I don't know. I feel like I'm trying to learn the balance of, like you said, like, do you get desensitized to that? It's like, no, but maybe I kind of need to learn to be, because I kind of put a lot of energy and time into things that maybe like it'd be my time and energy would be better spent somewhere else, you know?
Sure.
I tend to like ruminate on things that just like, and I care about people, and I think you make these decisions that it looks like you don't care about people, but you do. And if it's a shop that isn't paying their bill, like there's just these things where, you know, I can't pinpoint one lesson. It's just like, I love what I'm doing, but every day it's like something new that you're learning and trying to figure out.
Yeah. Talking about shops, I'm curious, because you've said this on so many other interviews before, that when you first made Public, you're like, people are just going to buy these boards.
Yeah.
So the first shop you call, you're like, hey, I'm Joe Sexton. You're going to buy my board, right? And they were like, why would I buy your board?
Yeah.
And then it like bothered you a little bit. So you probably didn't handle it the way that in retrospect you would have liked to, because you didn't know what to do.
No.
What was that situation? What was that shop? And did you eventually contact them and say, hey, I blew it. You were right. Thank you for calling me out.
I think I know the shop. I want to say it was Matt Toman, who worked at the shred shop at the time, and Matt's a good friend of mine. So like, also respect to him for kind of like telling me that it's not just going to be this easy. And I remember exactly where I was. We were actually in Omaha for, it was maybe even the first year I tried that long rail or whatever. But I was still like, I'm being a rider and filming. But this Public thing is it's just gonna be in the background, and like it's gonna crush it. You know, that's like this vision I had when it became this idea. And so called them, and it kind of was just like, had nothing prepared, had no pitch of like what's in the boards, why it's special, and they just called me out. They're just like, this isn't what makes us want to buy your product. And so the lesson there was really cool. It forced me to like go back, learn about the brand, figure out like really what this thing is, because it all happened so fast. It was like Stepchild, and then blink, and now we have Public, and it's this thing. I didn't really have the time to go like, what is this brand? What do I want to do with it? What is the story? Why would someone want to buy it? So it forced me to kind of go back, and then I really started to like craft the story, which I was like, dude, this is, you know, these types of graphics that weren't really happening. It was community based. I had like this Tumblr page. I wanted people to be involved. I wanted it to be, if you bought our board, you were a part of something, and that ethos still lives on. But that took a while to create, because I just was like, oh, it's boards. It's just boards that are, you know, what's in a snowboard is it's basically a skateboard, and buy it. And they were just like, no, we have so many brands with tech, with all this different stuff. And then I went back and like, we have the tech, we have all those things, but it forced me to go back and like retake another pass of like why I was doing it.
Sure. How is it still something that the public is heavily involved? Because you're not doing Tumblr anymore with asking questions. In what ways are you still involving the public?
I think it's just like, I run the Instagram still. So any question that comes through on the Instagram, like I handle that.
So everyone should DM the brand right now.
No, but I think it's cool to have that access. Like I love that. I pack almost all the boards. I put a handwritten note with every board. You know, at that scale, that's pretty cool to be able to like pack a board for a kid in who knows where and put a note in. And I just like that touch of like rider owned, rider operated, but truly, right? So it's like, for me, I get a kick out of that, being rider owned, having a career, starting this brand, putting my own money into it, like really just living that rider owned, rider operated, you know, narrative, and then owning it, writing notes and being a part. We'll do, you know, we want to do community events, like all the trade shows. I love meeting people for that. Like, I just think we try to tie people in as much as we can. Yeah.
What's the most memorable question you've ever gotten through a DM?
Actually, this is a pretty cool one. This wasn't much of a question, but it was a dude his dad DM'd me, and we had a board that said, I need therapy on it. This is an old one that was just like me at the time or whatever. It was this really cool yellow and blue board. So I need therapy on it. And the dad sent me this message that was basically like, my kid is really struggling with, I think it was like he was a hockey player or something. He was really struggling with mental health. And like, I think they started getting him into therapy. He saw like that board and was like, it took the stigma away. And it was funny enough. Like, I need therapy. He bought the board, like loved the board. And it changed it in his head of like, therapy's not so bad, or like mental health is something I can work on. But if Joe or this brand is going through it and showing it, then that's okay for me. And he basically said the kid like was maybe suicidal, and it really helped like get him out of that. Wow. So that was pretty emotional. I was just like, holy, like, you think you're just making these boards, but it's affecting people in this other way because of the meaning that they put on it. Right. So something like that was really incredible. And that honestly was like the reason, an insane reason to be like, wow, this is cool.
Does it make you feel that you have to overthink what you're doing with the brand moving forward? Like, does it put more weight on your shoulders? Because you're like, I could have this type of impact on people if I do things the right way. You know what I mean? Because when you're not thinking about it and you're just creating, then all of a sudden you realize you have this potential power for good. Do you feel the weight of that?
I think it's a fine line. I think as soon as you start creating for other people and what they're going to think, I think you kind of miss the point. Yeah. I think creating what you think is authentic and what you like and really owning that is what is going to allow someone to connect to it. Yeah. So I think the second you start thinking about, man, if we do this, I bet it's like, you don't know. You just have to kind of like, we always kind of have boards that have like a little bit of a spiritual nudge or even the graphics or these things, because that's like what I'm into. Sure. But I'm not doing that because I want someone to think about it this way and this. It's just like, no, I'm into this. And if you connect with it, then that's why you connect with it.
Sure. Yeah. That makes sense. Okay, a couple other questions before we head out of here. What is your favorite video part of all time? Not yours. Mm-hmm. What was your favorite video part of all time from before? Like, could have been 5 years ago, could have been 15 years ago that inspired you. And what's the most recent video part from anybody that stands out as like, that was the video that should have been video part of the year or whatever?
Yeah. Okay. I'll say, I would say Justin Hebel in Love Hate was like what I grew up. That was like my everything when that first came out. It was like, loved Hebel, like everything he did. I started dressing like him, just the whole thing. That's how that all, I think Love Hate was the video that I was like, because there was Mac Dog and I loved Mac Dog, but when Love Hate came out, everyone dressed like different, and it was at this perfect time when I was like, that's where I'm going. Just the way they rode their snowboards, what they rode their snowboards on, music, like everything from Love Hate was like incredible. And then I was just like, that's my thing. I'm subscribing to that. So Hebel and Love Hate, John Cooley, like that whole era, that was like, it was like insane how much that like influenced me at that time.
Who are the top 3 rail snowboarders ever?
Ever? I mean, JP's in there for sure. I would say Jed Anderson is in there as a rail guy for sure. And then, it's a tough list, but I'm trying to think of who is above. Maybe like, maybe like someone like oh man, let me think. JP, Jed. I don't want to say like, I gotta think, dude. Maybe like Louif. I think that's a pretty good list.
Dude, guaranteed you left some people out there. You're going to text me afterwards and be like, this should have been the one.
Yeah. And that's fair that he put me on the spot with that question, but I'm trying to think about like JP invented a lot of stuff. Jed's holding it down for like this generation. And Lou did a ton of like groundbreaking rail stuff that he changed like how it kind of looks. That would be off the top of my head. Those 3. Yeah.
If you got to pick the next Red Bull heavy metal spot, it's got to be a spot you've been to. Where would you throw the contest?
Man, I want to see it go international. Yeah. Super bad. So anywhere kind of in like a Finland or a Sweden or something like that.
Which spot? Think of a rail or think of a spot you've been to. Well, it's just hard because
it's more like these pavilion. It has to be like a pavilion where people could be at. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Like it's gotten so big that it has to be kind of this pretty big open space. So in Finland, like you could do it at a really world famous spot, but it's just going to be one rail and it's different. So, I mean, I would just say like I think it's called like TPC Arena or something in Finland. I would try to do it there.
Dude. Yeah. I guess I didn't even think about how it's not even looking for spots that you would hit otherwise. Now it's like expanded to be something totally different where it's like this wouldn't even be possible normally. So
Boston City Hall is literally a staircase and some walls, and then we're just like, we're gonna put. So it's funny that it's grown beyond that, and it definitely gets away from like what heavy metal was, because heavy metal was like just the spot, and then we're gonna like do a trick there. But I think what it's turned into is almost more interesting. It's like it could be anywhere. It's just like, what can you do and how can you build it to turn it into a contest?
Now you just got to get Red Bull to pay you to travel the world just to find spots. Just to scout spots. Okay, so let's get out of here pretty quick. I want you to give a shout out where people can follow you, both you personally, but then also the brands. You also mentioned that you may have something else that's coming up, sunglasses or something. What's coming up?
Yeah, Public. We're going to kind of like, I did these sunglasses that we did kind of as a tester thing, and I like loved the idea of kind of a new category, and it just got my wheels spinning about like, there's all these new frames, there's all these things working with different factories. So I'm definitely going to expand on that, which I'm super excited about. We have the clothing side, the board side, obviously, but yeah, it's www.publicsnowboards.com. The Instagram is @thisispublic. My personal is @Joe Sexton 1817.
Yeah, which 1817 needs to make a comeback, man.
I know.
Are you ever going to make like a 1817 Public like jacket or something or
we've
anything?
We've talked about it.
T-shirts?
I think we've talked about it. It's just sometimes things are better left just like with the memory that it was. Like I think it would have to be the total right thing. I'd want Jake and all the original guys to like be involved in it, and everyone's just kind of got their own stuff. So I like the memory of what it was, and I think we did it kind of at a good time where we didn't milk it.
Yeah.
And people wanted more, and it was just like, that's it. It's like if you are into it, you're remembering the memory of what it was, not these like weird clunky 5 years where we kind of kept trying to do it.
So people should make their own bootleg 1817 shirts and then show up at video premieres, and then you'd be stoked.
Well, just that era too, that was before Instagram, was before everything. So it was it was a really cool time, and to be a part of that, and like to do that with my friends and have it go the way it did, where it's just like, we had a good run. We made movies. We had sponsors. And I learned so much from that I took into Public. Like if I didn't have any of that, I don't think, and it was all like not intentional. We were just doing it and stuff, but we were basically building a brand without even knowing how to build a brand.
Yeah. But that's what people are doing now, even just through their social media. Okay. 100%. Let me give you a couple gifts, and then I got to go meet up with Tim. So first, from Tim Frederick, Minimum Wage Tim's Coffee. These beans are from Honduras, which I actually went to in December. I went to Honduras, and it was incredible.
Oh, nice.
So this coffee is for you. Yeah,
Thank
coffee's
you.
for you. Sick. You get to pick a mug, which you already did. That's why you're drinking from one.
Yeah, the time to put in work.
Yeah, I'm finally starting to put some merchandise on my website, passionpod.org. Cool. I didn't forever because I had my shop, so I was like, people just buy Passion Brand stuff there.
For sure.
But now there's the website, and then Skull Candy just sent me a whole big box of these.
Oh, nice.
The new Dime Evos.
Sick.
So yeah,
thank you so much.
Those are all for you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Passion Pod. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you soon.